Hello, everybody. In the spirit of Valentine's Day, I thought I would talk about relationships. Now, the key thing in life in general is to make sure that you're being yourself in general. Being yourself in the entirety of who you are is going to make your life in general fundamentally better, and so too in your relationships. The flip side of this is that you have to make sure that not only you're being loved for who you are, but that you're loving the person for who they are. Every relationship is going to have little arguments and big arguments, even the strongest relationships, but it's how you deal with these that tell you whether or not your relationship and you in general are working on yourself, working for you rather than against you. Having the time to take the time to not get overheated, learning how to agree to disagree, learning how to not take things so personally in those little moments, in those little arguments, so that when you get to those big fights, you can have this basis to step back and have as much of a conversation as possible and less of a heated emotional scene. One of the big keys to this is having a friendship as a foundation for all relationships. I have had some of the best relationships in my life because they were foundationally friendships. One of my favorite things to tell people is about how one of the partners I've had, we would get into these really heated, passionate arguments because we loved each other so much, but sometimes we did disagree about things that we didn't really disagree on in the grand scheme of things. And the funniest thing about this was that we would go in these highs and lows during these arguments and have little moments in between where we were being quiet, trying to hash things out, where we would tell each other a joke. We would just remember to tell that person something we had forgotten to tell them that day, and then we'd go back to arguing for a little bit, and then we could have these little moments in between because we had a foundation of friendship in our relationship. Not everybody in their relationships, even with a foundation of friendship, is going to want to do everything together, and that's okay. It's okay to be a relationship where you want to do everything together. If that's the case, you're probably at the very beginning of your relationship, but there's going to be a point where you find something, if not many things, that you don't want to do together, and that should be perfectly okay. You should be able to go off with your friends, they should be able to go off with their friends, and you should be able to trust that they're going to come back to you having been faithful, if that's something in your relationship. Because you have that trust, you have that foundation of friendship that you're working from. There's no reason to not be able to do things apart. You're not going to have all of the same interests all of the time. That's perfectly okay. Having this foundation of trust is key to this. Knowing that in general, whatever's worth having in your life is gonna come back to you. I used to have a 2-week rule in high school because really what it came down to was me protecting myself from there's this thing I like to call friendship chemistry versus lover chemistry, making sure, because there really is nothing quite like the feel of something new. It's a 9 Inch Nails Trent Reznor quote that I absolutely love, because it's what gets people to confuse that intense brand new chemistry that you're experiencing for lover chemistry rather than just friendship chemistry. And those are the relationships that fizzle out the fastest, or the ones where you just get so sucked in to the fact that you're having that new chemistry that you're not recognizing that it's just new friendship chemistry rather than new lover chemistry. Well, thank you. It seems they agree. One of the other things that's important to this once again, when it comes to knowing that everything that's important and worth having in life is going to come back to you, is going to stick with you, is the fact that you're going to want that person, and that person needs to want you just as much. Not just for all of you, but in general. And so making sure that that person is wanting to spend as much time with you as you want to with them in that sense, even if you are spending time apart. I had another relationship where we would spend months apart because that person would go traveling. That's perfectly fine. But we took the time. We have phones, we have text message, we have messenger apps. There's so many ways to stay connected. Making sure that not only that person stays connected with you, but they come back to you. It's so, so important to have that trust to be able to do that. And that's really the basis of the strongest relationships, is being able to be 110% completely yourself, even if you're going to have those little arguments, being able to get through them peacefully and rationally as best as possible, having that friendship as a basis for a relationship, because then you really do have a foundation when that lust dies a little bit, because even if it doesn't die, it's going to come down a little bit, I promise you. And having that trust is so, so, so key. Really and truly. You've got to be able to let that person go out into the world and be themselves and trust that they're going to come back to you. Faithful if necessary, depending on what your relationship is like, but come back to you. Have a good day, guys.